Chapter 1. The excremental, a malevolent meaning by definition. Proposition. The modern world's forward movement is motivated towards a pageantry of valueless consumption, backed by an inherent negative meaning. Premise. Objectivity is a self-evident fact that is found in the object itself. Formations require no belief. We have first-hand knowledge of the existence thereof once consciousness is observant of this piece of substance. After the truth of a thing is perceived, the item acts as a conceptual symbol to deduce from it a meaning. Furthermore, every object is a thing which has a word attached to it that carries a definition. Hence, the question of meaning is not mysterious, because an answer is pre-existent in the dictionary, i.e., a pepperoni Hot Pocket is definitional. It is a composite of many constituent parts: dairy, pork, tomato paste, breading, and chemicals. Each of these ingredients carries a definition of its own, and when it is all intact, we refer to it as if it were one item, though it is many items. This carcinogenic, artery-clogging poison is defined as, quote, microwavable food. But this is a misdefinition. It is rather a excitatory drug manufactured to inflict addiction and compromise health in the pursuit of profit. This corresponds with my original proposition: valueless consumption backed by an inherent negative meaning. This exemplification of demonstrable phenomena that is aberrated by definition is a sample that belongs to the functionality of a generalized principle. If we want to understand the whole, all we must do is study one of its parts. Then we find singularity within an ostensible plurality. And the underlying common denominator here is irrational, poisonous intake. Look around. We are surrounded by corporate structures within which every product is the extension of yet another corporation, providing first titillation of the tongue, and second, a reduction of mood and intellect. Gas stations, grocery stores, fast food chains are resource extraction entities that aspire to lower the vibration of mankind. There exist two kinds of meaning: subjective and objective. For now, we will concern ourselves with societal materials where definitions speak for themselves. That is objectivity. The definition of truth is that which is. This implies it must physically exist to the senses and is pre-established with a definition. We must then isolate each individual item and interrogate it with the question, what is it? As if it is bizarre and alien, so we are endeavoring to figure something out that is confusing. If this simple procedure is conducted aright, you are forced into the conclusion that a marketplace for the unnecessary predominates as a working definition. That is, if you don't fall victim to the deception of surface-level wordage, where a bag of chips is assumed to be a distinct exclusivity, and a chocolate bar is so too presumed to be a unique and separated unit of commerce. This is where we get stuck on particular words and go no further than fragmented pronunciations, rather than a definitive meaning that unites all self-same things together. If we are just vocalizing phonetics, we succumb to the illusion of difference. We may circumvent this by cognizance that words and definitions are not the same, and that assertions of accurate definitions is to soon arrive at the conclusion that due to a common denominator at play, once you have defined one thing, you have likewise defined all of these things as simultaneous. We may refer to this datum as the omni-definitional. Therefore, biological hazards under the guise of food is the definitive framework for describing the majority of consumeristic goods. As you can see, It is not an opinion to negate these commercial enterprises as an outgrowth of meaninglessness, because it is embedded within the very meaning itself that is given definitionally. A meaning that has no valuable significance but to expose itself as such. To be precise, it is mal-meaningful with deliberance. That is why it is a mistake to use the word meaningless so loosely. Because terrible things are full of meaning, just not a benevolent one. Therefore, in summary, the epitome of the omni-definitional, in this case, store-bought food products, is predominated in favor of that which is mal-meaningful. I would even venture to say that if all unnecessary poison was to be liquidated right now on the spot, almost nothing would remain. Common sense is that which is common to the senses. It follows from this that there is a struggle to locate one thing that is not contrabiological. All evidence suggests life is a disturbance of the stomach called hunger, which feeds from death. References to a, quote, free society is only the freedom of consummation. Capitalism is the extent of our autonomousness. Consume what thou wilt is the whole of the law. Maximization of pleasure is the law. Pleasure under the will to consume what one pleases. The mal-meaningful, as an omni-definition, is so exact with its habituation that even the should-be dietary benefactors like produce is tampered with pesticides, while also meat comes from sources utterly inhumane, not to mention inorganic. But even if produce is unaltered, and joyful animals have lived their lives in the best of circumstances before being killed, although this is a best-case scenario, it still belongs to the jurisdiction of a maleficent meaning definition-wise. A pro-meaning is the anti-meaning of some other life form. A pro-meaning is only true insofar as it is subjective. It knows only auto-survivability and considers that which is optimum for bio-longevity to be good in itself. A so-called pro-meaning remains in the jurisdiction of the mal-meaningful because hunger is a form of suffering that finds resolution through the consumption of prey objects. Whether plant or animal, we have killed something that did not want to die. To make matters worse, most people do not abide by their species-specific diet. The standard American mode of nutritional absorption is derived from the degenerative anti-meaning of disease-promoting food. In essence, we hurt our health while the cruelty of a cow was conducted prior to its metamorphosis into that cheeseburger we are munching away at. We are like a torturer who is also tortured by that which we are torturing. Does a salad scream when you eat it? Perhaps not. But would it not find it preferable to be left alone in a cabbage patch? Of course it would. But then again, everything that lives is a food source for the predatory jaws that want to take a bite from it, including humans. Somewhere right now is a wild beast that would love nothing more than to eat your flesh from the crotch upward without guilt. And despite that, it is still impossible to give claim to immorality when all it did was fulfill the deterministic pro-meaningful, though for us, it was anti-meaning indefinitely. Pro-meaning is a psychopathic superimposition that causes the automatism of killer instincts to pursue the devourment of the weak as a feeding ground. Both the pro-meaning and the anti-meaning belong to malevolence. Without it, locomotion would achieve zero distance traveled. A benevolent meaning is impossible when malevolence was the catalyst to obtain it, especially since mechanical nature is involuntary when it comes to predator-prey dynamics. The true evil is the fact that we are forced to eat in the first place. The human body is exploited by mandatory laborious expenditures for half or more of one's waking life just to obtain enough money to get food. Hence we say, to put food on the table, or who is the breadwinner, or I have mouths to feed. Food anxiety is the motivation for so much of our behavior. Hell, what is America but a gargantuous parking lot filled with restaurants and supermarkets? This prison was designed to be as enslavement inducing as possible, namely due to the codependency we have for subsistence. I'm a different kind of philosopher. For Nietzsche gave you the overman. Heidegger gave you Dasein's thrownness into phenomenology. Albert Camus gave you the absurd. But I alone give you the nature of the world and everything in it. Behold, I give you the excremental. I do declare, the apotheosis of knowledge is recognition that defecation is the will to meaning. My school of thought is synonymous with coprology, or the study of shit. So what is wisdom? Hatred, of course, for this world of shit that we find ourselves in. Who is our philosophical enemy? A mental illness called optimism. So profane are they that there exists only one word to besmirch them with, and that is coprophile, lovers of shit. We are dwellers of the dung heap, us humans, where a ubiquitous shittiness solicits waste while also mocking us with phrases like eat fresh, have it your way, and I'm loving it. And these sarcastic slogans bescumber into our ears, as if to say, a dopamine spike in the blood is the reason for existence, and that happiness is derived from the palatability found in garbage. The morphology of Western civilization is a monstrositous morbidity made of concrete and pavement, with single-colored boredom inside all corporate buildings. A cold grayness without heart or soul is this insoluble burden on which we stand, that gropes the mind with anhedonia. It is like a terminal diagnosis, which one expects to die from soon but never does. A pestilence so insidious that symptoms are multifarious, though the health of the body is in clinical good standing. And a world destitute of beautiful backdrops may in large part be the culprit for this subtle sickness of inward density. Some declare this emotional waste product due to deficient aesthetics to be depression. But I would better define the sensation as a slow kill decomposition leading to death, but never quite dead as of yet, endogenously speaking. Yet the cause is seldom recognized to be perpetual hideousness consequent of synthetic infrastructural matter. If dead objects are the building blocks of society, then our person will assume that mood as a default disposition. Artificial stimuli, therefore, in the long run, deadens the emotions to resemble things yawnsome, insipid. We are trapped in this body, with no chance of escape, where the possibilities of experientials are but a choice for what corporeal corpse we wish to hedonistically pursue. But the attempt to find meaning within the excremental is an act of coprophagia, that is, to eat shit as a pastime activity. Just open the door of any place of commerce, and you shall discover a plastic-wrapped variety of a omni-definitional mal-meaning that belongs to the excremental principle. As an experiment, I would like you to venture into a busy area and then point out every object and call it by the name that is given to it within the English language. In any case, you would verbalize aloud, depending on the location in question, Walmart, McDonald's, Taco Bell, 7-Eleven, etc., etc. Now, without becoming mentally immobilized by the word itself, which is nothing but the imaginary name given to a corporation, give me a definition as to what it actually is. The excremental. Now, go inside some of these enclosures, point out each item, and first verbalize aloud the non-entity which is the name that is given to it. Snickers bar, Coca-Cola, potato chips, etc., etc. And just what are these particular products? Are they delicious? Maybe, but only in a subjective sense. So let's not be anecdotal. What are these particular products objectively? The excremental, which is a omni-definitional mal-meaning, but self-indulgence thereof is but the engagement with articles of hedonism, which makes becoming disabused from them impossible. One philosophical mistake most thinkers are guilty of is the assumption that the subject takes precedence over objects, that selfhood is the prime mover of things with dominion over them. But this is a inversion, for the object does not exist to serve us. We exist to serve the object. Fragmented materialism has become the pseudo-authority, whereby usurpation in the form of suggestions has intercepted the volition of individuals towards the fulfillment of an alien will that belongs to an insentient itness. It is self-deception to think that a culinary experience, for instance, is in accordance with, quote, my will. On the contrary, it is the non-consensual stomach that is first off compelling you. Then it is the will of those who obtain cash from the sandwich, and even the sandwich itself is a intentful entity with the will to be eaten that is fulfilled by you doing so. Consider beer. What is the reason behind it? To be drank. Therefore, it has an agenda. In other words, products are purpose-driven entities, an insentient itness personifying a invested interest to be utilized as an object by the subject. It is therefore the fulfillment of outer determinations that is accomplished when you succumb to the influence of these persuasions. Most believe that livingness is a prerequisite before willfulness is possible. But this is a half-truth, because if a strong enough mind puts intentionality to be embedded within the object in the event where it was invented, thereafter it is not merely just a thing, as there is the residue of a being's desire for this piece of material to be sold to customers. Then once the copy of a copy of a copy is on the shelves, this inanimate, semi-dead stuff carries with it the life force endowment of a thought deliberation, which belongs to the person who brought it into existence. Hence these items are ideas made manifest from a remote and strange will which is hostile to us for selfish reasons. And the commodity is its representative, a kind of black magic enthrallment, if you will. Objects are haunted with an element of incorporeal programmability. 1. A subject presuppose the object in a creator/creation relationship with the execution of his will. 2. The product, once manufactured, is a willful agent in conformity with its maker. It holds a charge of latent inculcations which acts as a mind control device on behest of the very mind who conceived it. When this mindful intention then incarnates into something, it tries to suck you in, because that is the precise purpose as to why it was made. Manifested ideas are a mode of operation in working. 3. When this calcified thought form has reality in the world, it likewise becomes an entity harboring a singular will, and that is to be consumed. Action at a distance is the inducement of these machinations. If mankind as a whole was to reject it, it would become extinct. That is why it is so aggressive, for its existence is dependent upon the subjects who delight in them. So my conclusion is this. The insentient itness of oral fixated phenomena carries as a willful entity the function of subordinating subjecthood to objecthood. Case in point, Diet Cokes have overlordship over soccer moms. Alcoholics are the underlings to those empty bottles which ruin their lives every day. Most of us have these types of entity attachments, and we are deluded as to think our self-determinism is the agent of causality. We are rather the effect, for we are greatly affected. It has influence over us. Each time we should fall into temptation, it would behoove us to soliloquize the following: this inner will is a non-self that belongs to the outer will of a foreign thingness in which I am willing, and it is by it, through me, that I become a slave to craving. That which we want wants us to want it. By you fulfilling your will, you at the same time fulfilled the will of a retardative defilement which is rejoicing that you believe in voluntary volition. And even more so, that you have assumed equality with it by stooping down to its level, while you are but an extension of a feverish frenzy which has summoned depersonalized participation. You are consumed by the act of consumption itself. Let it be known, the highest form of man is the rejectionist, who yields the genius of non-consensualism. For uncompromising disagreement secures freedom from falsehood, as truth is the declaration that all things are a lie. Therefore, the object becomes defeated when it is found to be objectionable. Thereafter, we are merely observers of the excremental, and the omni-definitions of the mal-meaningful stand as an example of that which is to be disengaged. It is hereby only an offensive mental picture that we love to hate with both indifference and negation. Because matter is an impediment that impinges upon consciousness, it deserves to be despised in theory and practice. That is the mad monk's meditation. For it is a paradox that anathema is the forebearer of negation and indifference itself. Gnosis finds its zenith point by implosions of quiet contempt that can only be described as a seething loathsomeness that embroils our inner divinity with corrosion. But it is this painful disposition that leads to the conclusion that indifference and negation is the most authentic form of hatred. It also is the embodiment of lucidity. It is the spiritual stimulant that keeps us awake, i.e., I am indifferent towards things because I hate them, and I negate all things so too because I hate them. This type of hatred is so paradoxical that we might also say, the only thing I love is to hate the world, which is the oxymoron of joyful resignation. When the world provides no happiness, sometimes disgust for it is the closest thing. Pessimism can be a kind of comedic satire that laughs in the face of meaninglessness as a form of disempowerment, where even normative innocuances are a source of revulsion that is met with sarcastic dark humor. This is a last-ditch effort for the life of nihilism within to express somewhat of a personality. We are not obliged to silence so-called negative thoughts, because they are the forewarnings of conscientiousness that fuckery is afoot. Since when are we to vilify honesty? Nay, it is positive thoughts that should be kept from your mind, as no good can come from those deceptions. Do not listen to New Agers who say, how you see the outside is a reflection of who you are on the inside. This is ass backwards. It is instead exterior conditions which has brought forth the interior state. Objects are agents of causality that initiate provocation onto the subject so we may become the effect thereof. So it stands to reason that bad thoughts and bad feelings are presupposed by phenomenal observances which are what they are. And to suggest otherwise is tantamount to gaslighting. Quote, You are the problem, and the world is faultless. It is the psyche that needs to change, and not the substance. And again, this is retrograde. It is the world which is the problem, and my recognition of that is faultless. And the substance shall receive nothing but ridicule from my psyche, because anything less is unworthy of me. Truth knows no optimism. We become liars the moment pessimism ceases with its activity. When products become articles of meaninglessness, was it not this accusation that led to avoidance therefrom? If antagonism leads to zero tolerance, and therefore non-participation is fulfilled, then you realize that these so-called negative thoughts actually bestow a positive outcome.